In this video, I'm going to show you how to import images from a device, whether that be directly from your camera or from a card reader. Um, either options are going to be the same process. Um, so we'll go ahead and look at our bridge interface here. And right now I have a memory card plugged into a card reader, and that is connected to my computer through a USB device. And now on the computer tab in my favorites, you can see that my card is right here. And what I could do is I can say get photos from camera. Now, though it does say get photos from camera, what this actually means is it's giving you a dialog window to tell Bridge specifically where to place these images, and also within this dialog box you can also rename your files or make any other changes to the files as you work. So the first time you click it, you're going to get this dialog box, and it's going to tell you, do you want Photo Downloader to automatically launch whenever a camera or card reader is connected? I don't like this option because for my own personal preference, I like to be in control of when things pop up or when programs decide to open. And I actually think it's quite annoying if I plug in my iPhone to charge on my computer and then this dialog box comes up, or if I just plug in a memory card and it comes up and I'm trying to use another software like Lightroom. So to avoid that happening, what I do is I just click no and I say don't show again. So I'm going to click don't show again and hit no. Okay, and now you can see that at the top here, we've now switched into a plugin application that is part of Bridge, and it is called the Photo Downloader. Now here we can select our device. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Ryan Perez. And now here we can also choose where we want this to go. So on here I have 133 files, and it is approximately 6 gigs of information. So I'm going to go ahead and choose where I want this to go. And I want to place it on my external hard drive. I'm going to place it in a PCC folder. I'm going to click New Folder. I'm going to call this week _2 assets. We're going to create. We're going to hit open. And then now what you can do is you can create a subfolder if you like to. That is completely up to you. I'm just going to say none because I just want it to go directly into that folder, so that way I don't have multiple folders inside of folders. If you wanted to organize it by these specific attributes, you are able to do that, but keep in mind that if you had shot images on various different days, you're going to end up with a folder for each day that an image was captured. And sometimes that will tend to make organizing your images a little bit more complicated, where my preference would be to either create the folder and then just choose none for subfolder. But if I was going to use that folder I created earlier to contain multiple folders, I would then choose a custom name and organize it that way. But for this moment, I'm going to go ahead and just choose none. Right? And here, where it says rename files, you are able to rename the files based on these attributes. You can also customize a name as well. I actually don't like to do that because I like to keep the frame count attached to my files. That way things don't get confused. And then later on down the road, once my file is completed, that's when I'll actually change the name of the file. But for the most part, I like to just keep the same frame count that the file comes with because I feel like that helps me search for my images in a more efficient manner. Okay. And then now we have these other features here. Um, this is saying open Adobe Bridge after copying. We already have Adobe Bridge open, so you can leave that checked on if you want to, but you don't necessarily need to have that checked on. This applies if you, earlier when that other dialog window came up and it asks us if we would like to have the photo downloader pop up every time we plug in a memory card or some kind of device containing new images. Um, this would pop up without the photo downloader would pop up without Bridge being open. So as soon as it downloads, you would then open up Bridge. But Bridge is already open anyway, so this doesn't really matter. That would matter if you do want that feature with the photo downloader. If you want it to pop up when you plug in your memory card, then that's when this feature matters. DNG, I'm going to go ahead and convert to DNG. DNG is a digital negative, and what that does is it guarantees that you'll be able to work with your RAW files in the future, just in case if your camera manufacturer stops updating their firmware, or in the event that Adobe doesn't recognize your camera manufacturer's version of Camera Raw with newer versions of Camera Raw or Lightroom or Bridge. What DNG does is it converts a RAW file into a digital negative, which is an archival form of a RAW file. It has the same functionality as a Camera Raw file, but what it does is it almost guarantees you, in theory, that 10 years from today, for instance, I'll still be able to open up this RAW file or this DNG file using Camera Raw or Lightroom. So I'm going to go ahead and convert it to DNG. Delete original files. Now this one is completely up to you. I'm going to wait to delete these files. I really don't need to do that right now because something could happen where I lose it, and I'm just going to keep them on my memory card until I for sure know that I no longer need to have them on the card and that these images are stored in more places than just one. And while we are on the subject of storing your images on in more than one place, here you have the option to save copies. So you can save a second set of copies of your images on another hard drive if you wanted to, or into another area on your computer. For instance, if you have a Google Drive, you can either place it in your Creative Cloud, or you can place it on another hard drive, and when it's copying over, it'll save it in both areas, which is a really great feature. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and unclick that because I already have a backup system set up, and for me that would be redundant to save a second copy, and it'll also make the process of importing the images a little bit longer as well. Let's go ahead and click on this advanced dialog box. So the advanced dialog box is nice because what this does is it lets you view the images that are on your storage device. And the reason why this is nice is because sometimes we don't always want to transfer or import all of our images. Sometimes we only want to maybe import 5 of 133 files. So here you can uncheck all of them or you can check them all. But this allows you to see a thumbnail view of your pictures, and it allows you to select which ones you want. And what you're seeing over here is pretty much the same dialog window we had before we clicked on Advanced View. Because if we go back to Standard Dialog, we're seeing those features there, but what we're getting is a more expanded window other than just this one thumbnail here. So Advanced Dialog is pretty useful if you're not interested in importing all of your images. Like I said, I don't want to create a subfolder. I don't want to rename my files. I want to keep the same frame count. I want to convert to DNG. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And let's look at our convert to DNG settings. All right. So here we have compression. Right here we have our JPEG preview. Now this is important because when you bring in files into Adobe Bridge, what it's going to do is it's going to cache a preview of your image. The preview is just so you can see what your image looks like while it's in Bridge. It's not going to give you a full resolution version of that preview, because if you're dealing with a really large file, for instance, it'll take a long time for the computer to render that view. So you have some options here. I like to just do medium size. If you do full size, that tends to be a slower rendering, so I'll just choose medium size. Compression, because it is a DNG file, it is lossless, so you won't lose any information at all. So that's okay if it is compressed because it is lossless. Here we have image conversion method. I like to preserve my raw image when I import into Adobe Bridge or Lightroom. I do this because, we can just read this simple explanation here. The image data is stored in the original Mosaic format, if possible, which maximizes the amount of data preserved. Mosaic image data can be converted to linear data, but the reverse is not possible. So if I were to convert this to linear data, I wouldn't be able to go backwards and look at my Mosaic information that comes out of the raw file. This is a larger conversation, but long story short, the way that Photoshop and Camera Raw operate, it does operate on a linear binary system of information, which isn't exactly how Camera Raw works, but all of that stuff gets converted by science and computers, so it's something that you don't necessarily really have to worry about. And that's actually like a specialized area of interest. But if that does interest you, I would definitely do more research or check in with me and we can look into resources so we can take a deeper look at how converting to linear image affects the way you process your work. And here, I actually do like to embed my original raw file into my DNG. This does make your file larger, but what it does do is it allows me to have both worlds. It allows me to have my DNG file, and then it also allows me to have my original Camera Raw file as well, just in case I need to extract it later on in the future. So I go ahead and click that. Okay, so template to use metadata. So you can choose what metadata you want to go in there. I'm going to choose basic metadata because that's information that you definitely want to have attached to your file. What that's going to give you, it's going to give you all of your camera information. That's going to give you all the settings that your camera had while you were shooting in situation. It'll even tell you what lens you're using. And also, depending on your camera manufacturer and its technology, it'll even give you the location that your camera took the picture. So that's pretty cool. So I'll just go ahead and include basic metadata. You can also include the creator, which is me right here. So I'll type in Ryan Perez. And I'm going to type in the copyright as well. I'm going to say 2018. And then to do a copyright, you're going to hit Option G. That'll give you the copyright symbol. Actually did this backwards. This should be copyright 2018, like so. Just like that. And then now we're going to hit Get Media. And now our files are transferring over. And when that's done, we should see this on my external hard drive in my PCC folder, and it will be inside of my week 2 assets once it is completed.